I'm Jon Bond. Welcome to Move Yourself Happy. Made for fitness enthusiasts who want to make their passion their profession. Are you unhappy in your present job? Are you passionate about health and fitness? Do you want to release your true potential? If the answer is yes, this podcast is for you. I will be teaching you the specific knowledge that every trainer and coach needs to be successful. So listen closely as I share my expertise with you. So just like me, you can love what you do. George, good to have you back, mate.
Thanks.
We've had you on before.
Yep.
And got loads of good feedback. Why are you laughing?
I just think the second you start, we're just, boom, start interrupting each other.
Right, yeah. I know, we talked about getting a microphone where, like, I hold it, pass it to you. I think it'd be fun, but it might be a bit formal. But Anyway, we'll try that another time. But good to have you back. As I said, got loads of good feedback from when you were on before.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Lots of the students have been mentioning that they watched it and they thanked you for some of the stuff you said on there, which obviously was helpful for them and work with their clients. And I think just enjoyed listening. So, great. Today, what I want to talk about is your experience of any kind of struggles that you've had in the past with regards to your mental health and what you've learned along the way for managing it for yourself, and then maybe potentially what you've learned since that you kind of filter into training and coaching others. If that's okay.
Definitely, yeah.
If not, I mean, we can think of something else.
It's all good. We can dive deep into that. I think everyone has some sort of past struggle, right? That they're either happy to talk about or not, and ultimately it shaped them as a person, as a human. So yeah, we can dive straight into it if you like. Yeah,
brilliant. So, well, I know we've spoken off camera before about what you've kind of gone through, but I'd like to hear it again. And obviously for those that are listening. So, yeah, should we start there?
Take it away. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm very privileged. I had a wonderful upbringing. I actually had such an amazing childhood. Loved my childhood. So many fond memories. My parents are still together now, and we're together all the way through my childhood. I've got a sister as well who is my best friend. You know, we would always go to the cinema together, and we still to this day, you know, if we go out for a meal out or whatever, just the two of us, it's not weird. You know, we've got a great relationship. So I always had a very happy, healthy, safe home life. But I struggled massively with anxiety, like proper panic attacks and physical anxiety all the way through my childhood and certainly in my teenage years.
And is this pre-social media? So
pre-social media, yeah.
Which so you can't blame it on that.
No, which is very interesting. It didn't happen when I, very, very early on, like, 4, 5, 6 and 7. But I would say, getting towards double digits when I was sort of like 10, 11, 12 and throughout. And then certainly in high school is kind of finished me off. I was very, very anxious. And I remember starting little, what we would now probably refer to as OCD traits. So going into my mum's room every single night saying, does the fire alarm work? Does the burglar alarm work? Have all the hobs been turned off? Are the doors locked, etc. And I think at the time my mum just thought it was just a little thing I did, and she would say, yes, George, and oh, that's sweet, he's making sure we're all safe. But then that became something where I thought, I have to make sure every single night or else I can't sleep properly. And then little things would take over. Like I'd go in my room, turn my light off, and I'd start thinking bad thoughts. And I'd think to myself, oh no, I'm going to turn the light back on, think a good thought, and then turn it off. And then I can sleep peacefully. And then, again, as a lot of the listeners probably are well aware now, these are early signs of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, where you think to yourself, I've got to do this, otherwise something bad is going to happen. And then I could go down that route a little bit more, but I'm going to steer it back towards the anxiety thing. As a result, I started to become a lot more scared and fearful of the world. I just thought everything was out to get me, and I was scared to go outside. And I had a few problems when I was growing up as well. I got chased before by some adults when I was very young, and they had bottles and stuff. And cool story, I actually jumped over a 6-foot fence, and I can't remember how old I was. Must have been about 8 years old, and I jumped fully over because I had so much adrenaline.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Superpowers. On I think comes up on the level 3 where we talk about you can only voluntarily tap into a certain number of motor units. But if the kind of electrical impulse is strong enough, then involuntarily you can tap into a lot more.
Yeah.
So you potentially you can double your strength.
Yeah.
So
Precisely.
you probably did. Like your jump height, your vertical jump height probably
Yeah.
doubled
Yeah.
because of being chased.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you hear about like mothers being able to lift a car off their child.
Yeah, that sort of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And in fact, Eddie Hall, when he did his 500 kilo lift, he had therapy to get his head into a mindset of lifting a car off his kids. And he says that that's the only reason why he lifted that weight, is because he got himself into that headspace.
I'm not sure I want to go in that headspace.
I know, yeah.
That's dedication to the world record.
Yeah,
Right.
certainly. Anyway, yeah, so then throughout high school, I started to develop actual panic attacks, like where I felt like I couldn't breathe. And it's hard to know where this all kind of stemmed from. And I've seen multiple therapists all throughout my childhood, all throughout my years, and a variety of therapists as well. I've seen like holistic healers and therapists. And
like alternative medicine type
alternative medicine, yeah, absolutely. And then I've seen your stereotypical ones, and I've gone through the NHS with other ones, etc. I say my mum did all this for me, which is amazing, so supportive and kind and helpful, and was always there for me, which is lovely. But in terms of like where did it actually come from, I had a theory, and it might be completely wrong, but when I was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck, and I couldn't breathe at all. And the nurses afterwards said that I had about 30 seconds before dying. So I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't swallow, I couldn't do anything, right? It was just so restrictive around the neck. And when I was a baby, my mum said that when she would feed me, I would always just spit out the food and just sit there. And then she'd put it in, I'd spit it out. And I mean, you're a dad, you'll know that is quite normal behaviour, but to keep doing it, every single mouthful, every single meal for years on end is abnormal. And I was doing that. So I was issuing early signs and behaviours of...
This sounds very plausible, by the way.
Yeah,
very plausible.
Yeah, I think, and it just caused some traumas. We store trauma within the body, physically, emotionally, mentally. Anyway, so actually, I'll get on to... No, hang on. Let me try and stay on track, because you know what I'm like.
But
all right, I'll just quickly get through the anxiety then. So yeah, all throughout high school, I had severe anxiety, severe panic attacks. The longest one I ever had was 14 hours. So it started before school. It went all the way through school. And bear in mind, this anxiety was the type of anxiety where if I took a breath in, it would actually sound like that. And that was a genuine normal breath. So there was something psychological going on where it made my airflow restricted. I don't know how or why, but anyone who suffers with anxiety knows it's a real thing. I wouldn't be able to open my hands either, so my hands would lock together, so would my toes. I'd go numb in my arms, numb in my legs, tingling all up and down the body, and this was 14 hours. And for some reason, I could sometimes get through the day. I was always so scared of people knowing. This is the main fear. As long as people didn't know, I could kind of stomach it and just get through the day. And I would just, I'd say, I injured my wrist at the weekend or whatever. I'd just come up with all these different excuses. And oftentimes I used to just get sent home. I would just go and make up some excuse, feel sick, got a headache, and I'd just get sent home. And then I'd open up to my mum that actually I had anxiety attack, etc. But anyway, this one lasted 14 hours and I was knackered the day after. But that's just how bad they were. And they went on and on and on. And it got to a point where I thought, my GCSEs were coming up, and I thought if I panic during the exam, I'm a bit screwed, because these are very important. And I thought, I need to sort this out. I need to get out of this headspace. And so I took it all on myself, because there were no therapists helped.
Sorry, do you think, was it conscious thought that was creating anxiety, or do you think it was more unconscious thought that was creating anxiety?
That's a good question.
Because you, from what you were saying previously, it sounded like you weren't really aware a lot of the time as why it was happening.
Yeah.
But if you're worried, if you're consciously worrying about something, then you'd go, because I was worrying about this. But if it's happening and you don't know why it's happening,
it was more unconscious.
So that's what I wonder. I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? I'd love to talk to I don't know, I guess like a neuroscientist as to whether that
So interesting.
can you do that?
Yeah.
Can you, because we can do so much unconsciously.
Yeah.
So can we actually have thought unconsciously going on? Like you're in a constant fight or flight kind of mode, worrying about, you know, the things you talked about.
Yeah.
And that you're not even aware.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
that's
fascinating.
mad, isn't it?
It's absolutely fascinating. Even when the first one happened, me and my whole family was watching EastEnders, like on a Friday night. Nothing unusual or unordinary about the circumstances. It was so normal, and then suddenly I just breathed in and felt a restriction in my airway, and that's all it was. And then it set me off. Oh my god, I can't breathe. Oh my god, I'm dying.
There was no trigger.
Nothing. Zero trigger. Just randomly one day. I don't want to scare anyone listening, you know, but ultimately sometimes that can happen. And it might have been a fluke thing. It might have been my mouth was dry and it was an accidental thing. But in my mind, my young mind, I just thought, oh my goodness, like, what was that? And then it set me off, you know.
And of all the things you tried then, because you said your mum referred you to various stuff through the NHS, but then you tried alternative stuff, was of those, well, did any of them work? And of those that worked, which ones kind of were the best?
Unfortunately, none of them worked, but I can tell you the difference. NHS are great. It's a lot more sort of psychological based, trying to get you to imagine things and think of different scenarios when you are going through that. The holistic doctors would put together little bottles of essential oils and stuff that you'd rub on your chest, you know, to try and help open up the airways, and you could feel it working, like it cleared the airways and stuff, but it didn't help the anxiety as such. But I saw all sorts of people, some that we can maybe go into at a later date. But I used to use I got an inhaler prescribed. I used to use the plastic bag, the air bag, breathing in and out of that. That didn't help. That actually made it worse. In fact, when I tried to implement some of these techniques, it actually made it worse because it just reinforced the fact that yes, you are going through something terrible right now, and other people are trying to help you. I hated the thought of anyone else getting involved. I just wanted to be locked away in a room and just sort it out myself. You know, I hated the fuss. Any kind of fuss or attention was made it a million times worse.
Because suddenly there was an expectation to get better for other people now? Or?
Not even that, just oh, look at George, he's panicking. You know, let's sit with George.
Like it felt like a weakness or something.
Not even that. Just attention. I just hated you know, like if you're crying over something, and then imagine like 6 or 7 people knew and they all came to your aid. It's like no, go away, leave me alone. It's like that. Okay. I just didn't want the attention. It made it so much worse. So yeah, that was that. And then so I'm just trying to remember now. So yeah, NHS was good, but it didn't really work. So yeah, I tried all these different things. None of it really worked. And then I had to take it upon myself to fix myself, because I thought, like, somewhere in my subconscious this has been brought on. So, and I'm a big believer that anything you can create, because yes, anxiety is a real thing, but we create a lot of it in our own minds. If I can create it, I can also destroy it or reduce it, even if I reduced it, because I was having severe panic attacks daily, not once a week, not when I got triggered, but daily. And unannounced. Sometimes it was at 6 a.m, sometimes 6 p.m, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes, you know, in the middle of school. Like it varied every single day. You never knew when it was coming. And I could think about it all day. I'd be like, it's not here yet, and then boom, it would happen.
Mate, this sounds hideous. It sounds like, because you're dealing with this thing in the whatever is triggering it is probably one thing, and then the consequence or the symptom. Now you got to deal with that.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's not. It's so much more. It's almost like, and it's probably like a snowball effect, isn't it? Just sort of gathering, getting worse and worse. And worse.
Precisely.
Wow, yeah, that's tough for you to go through. Tough for your family as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Being your mum and your dad having to see you go through that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And my mum spending so much money on trying to help, and being unsuccessful with it must have been horrible. But she's really proud of where I'm at now, because what I had to do, because ultimately my biggest fear was my airway closing and not being able to breathe at all, and as a result dying, right? I was scared of death. And that goes way back to what I was just talking about when I said in the early days, you know, is the fire alarm working? Is the burglar alarm working? Because what happens if a burglar comes in and kills me? What happens if a fire goes off and I die? It all goes back to death. What did the umbilical cord do around my neck? It was killing me, right?
Yeah,
so I've always had this fear of dying by something outside of my control. You
And
know?
did you know about what age did you find out about the umbilical cord?
It was a little bit later on. I don't know. Probably.
So you'd experienced anxiety before you knew about your umbilical cord?
Yes, I knew about that. Yeah, actually, I did, because I remember in a therapy session my mum bringing that up, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. That makes sense.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of therapists dismissed that though. You know, they were a bit like, you know, oh, it might not be that. You know, but I think it's quite plausible.
I do, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not. Yeah, that's not what my skill set or my expertise would be. But just with a bit of a sciencey brain, I can kind of we can do so much unconsciously. So even though you can't consciously remember being a baby or being in a womb,
Yeah.
it happened to you.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that's a memory that would be stored that could be unlocked somehow. I don't know.
Well, certainly, and
As I said, I'm not an expert.
well, I practice. I practice something called TRE, which stands for trauma releasing exercises, and they're exercises you can do to release trauma stored in your muscles. And at the end of every session, my body goes into a fetal position, which is so interesting because that's how I came out. We can talk about that at another time, which is so interesting. One of my favourite topics, TRE. There's some on my YouTube channel, George Holistic, if anyone wants to look up TRE. So anyway, I had to sort this out, and the way I did it was by challenging it, by treating it as something separate. So when it came on, it was almost like the devil on my shoulder, like, oh, I'm here again, I'm going to ruin your day. And normally I'd be terrified of it. Oh no, don't ruin my day. Oh no, I didn't want this to happen today. But I flipped it, I reversed it, and I started to get stronger because of that. So when it came on and started restricting my airflow, I'd try and find some humour in that. I'd be like, look at you trying to, you know, I almost gave it an identity, the anxiety. You know, look at you trying to scare me right now. Look at you trying to be all big and ruin my day. Like, go on, do your worst. I want you to actually close my...
Oh my God.
I was like, stop me from breathing completely, because ultimately that was my biggest fear. I was like, I dare you to stop me from breathing, because I had enough of it. Years and years and years and years. I was like, do your worst, do your worst. And then...
Were you so stressed at this point and anxious about it that it was kind of make or break? It was like, look, pick.
Yeah.
Either kill me or piss off.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it was. And of course I didn't want to die, but it got to the point where it was like, okay, either kill me, like you say, or get out of here. Because what is this weird in-between that's just bizarre?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, don't torture me.
Yeah.
Kill me or go.
Absolutely. And then, and I remember it so clearly, the day I did that, and I was like, go on, do your worst, do your worst. And it never got worse, because it can only get to a certain point. And, the hands would go up, the tingling would go all over the body. But I didn't die. It didn't kill me. It didn't completely close my airway. And the second that happened, I started finding humour in that. I found it hilarious how it's like this anxiety in my head, I gave it an identity. I was like, you really think you're something, don't you? You really think that you can scare me and that you can make me be like, oh, I'm going to die from this. You've got no power. You can't do anything. And I found it funny. And then I used to taunt it, like, come on, is that all you've got? Is that all you've got?
Yeah.
Give me more. Come on, close my airway, close my air. And the more power I gained over it, the more the symptoms started to reduce.
That's crazy.
It was incredible. But
so, sorry, the TRE, is this linked to... Is this specifically the TRE technique?
No.
Okay, so
is
this is
different.
You're like the founder of this technique.
Yeah, completely.
For yourself,
for myself,
for this situation, yeah.
No therapist, no doctor, no one told me to do this.
No, I guess that's quite a risky thing, isn't it? Imagine,
Yeah.
and actually, for anyone listening, this is anecdotal, so you have to take that.
Yeah.
It's not that you disregarded that it's anecdotal, but it's probably horses for courses, and it might not only may it not work for somebody else, it could have the opposite effect, I suppose, couldn't it? So we
potentially,
have to be careful.
Potentially, especially in the early days. I think if you've been struggling with it for a little while and you're still relatively new to it, and then you start saying things like that, that's not good.
You were like, you had nothing to lose.
I had nothing
anyway,
to lose.
did you? Yeah.
And nothing. And my GCSEs were coming up, and it was like, I can't have this for my GCSEs. No. And it's a bit like there's that famous video in an Australian school where there's a larger kid and he's being picked on by another kid. And he's like poking him and prodding him, and then suddenly this kid picks him up and slams him.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and it's that breaking point, and every human has a breaking point. Even if you think you're the most passive guy ever, everyone has a breaking point.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was my breaking point, and so it was just like, this is how I'm going to fight back.
Hello, you right?
We're not doing a podcast, are we?
We are, yeah, but it's all right. You can, yeah. This is Dave.
Good old Dave.
Process.
Trust the process. That's actually a good bit to add. Trust the process.
Sorry, George. We actually got interrupted then. Someone came in, so we've kind of taken that bit out. George, you were basically saying, we were saying that this isn't necessarily something that we would recommend.
No,
perhaps
that's right,
to anyone listening. It worked for you, but we have to remember that we're not experts in this stuff, and maybe there's a reason why therapists aren't recommending it to people. But it worked for you. This kind of taking it on and just saying, look, and you had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And actually, do you know what? While you were talking, it reminded me of. Have you seen the film It?
Yeah.
So you know, have you seen the remake?
Yeah.
I saw the original years ago, so it's probably the same.
Yeah,
I can't
I've seen
remember.
both.
But in the new one, they disarm the clown, don't they, by showing it that not scared of it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Stephen King, like the writer, whether that's a metaphor for something he's observed, witnessed, experienced himself, and if he's had a similar sort of, I don't know anything.
Well,
about Stephen King.
no, mate, absolutely. And we watched Home Alone recently at Christmas, and he goes down in the basement and he's scared of the what is it, like the
washing machine.
Yeah. And it's and the first time he goes down, he's like, it's only in my imagination. And then he runs upstairs because he's terrified. And the next time he goes down, he just goes, shut up. He just tells it to shut up.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah.
And that's what it was like for me. It's like, oh my goodness, I can't breathe. And it's like, shut up.
So your mum sent you to therapists. She paid for you to have alternative medicines.
Yeah.
All this money.
Yeah.
And
Bless her.
in the end, it was Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone that taught you how to get yourself out of this situation. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, mate. But it was, and I've spoken enough, but I had the same thing with OCD, where I could go into a whole world of that, because that got really bad as well, whilst the anxiety was bad, because they linked together. But I switched off the OCD with the exact same method. So let's take the light switch as an example, which is nothing in compared to some other things that I used to do. When I turn off the light and I have a bad thought, I just have to say whatever, and I just go to bed. And it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But repetition, nothing bad actually happened. It's all fine. It's actually in my head. It goes away very, very quickly. It's like we've spoken about mobility. It can take a long time to become immobile, like not being able to stretch and stuff. It doesn't take long to actually fix your mobility, does it? And
often less time, yeah.
I've learnt this.
Usually less time.
Yeah, and I've learnt this with some in my experience with some mental health struggles. It can take years and years and years and years to build up to a terrible place. It doesn't take that long to actually sort out if you're willing to just be as brave as you can and as bold as you can. But I appreciate everyone's on different levels with it.
Yeah, do you know what? Again, the scientist in me says it probably depends on the time spent developing the bad habit, or the whatever the conditions were that got you immobile or impacted your mental health or whatever it is. If you add up the time spent, the frequency, the volume of whatever it was you were doing to get you in that position, it's probably an equal amount in the opposite direction. I didn't explain that very well, but let's.
That's good. Yeah, you're right.
But so what I'm saying is, when you deliberately attempt to change a behaviour or change a habit, you hit it quite hard normally, don't you? You hit it with quite a lot of volume. You'll be on it every day. You'll be focused on it. So you quickly accumulate the time spent giving you the issue in the first place, or the lack of mobility in the first place. So I know what I'm saying in my head. I'm just not sure I'm communicating.
No, so I'm following.
You are following?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay, cool. So basically, like if you did something that was really bad for your posture, and you did it once a week for 10 years,
Yeah.
I'm speculating here, but I
Yeah.
wonder if you could undo that
Yeah.
thing by doing the opposite thing that you need to do to make
Yeah.
it better twice a week.
Yeah.
It might take you 5 years to undo it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would. That
was a right one for
No,
that,
no,
wasn't
no,
it?
no. I got it, and I'm sure everyone else got it. But I actually think it's less than that. I think that if you've spent 10 years with bad posture because of sitting, I think in a matter of weeks or months, if you did the correct exercises and amended your posture and stuff, I think you can sort it even sooner, even quicker. I think the body always knows what's good for it and will always lean to that rather than the opposite.
So this is why I like getting you on, George, because although we're very similar, we also still have some sort of little different ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And then I want to come back and go, but again, of course,
Yeah.
what it could also be
That's what I
is
love
that,
about you, though.
say it took 10 years to get that lack of that poor, sorry, we're looking at the last 10 years of mobility. Maybe 5 years was it. 5 years of that was getting you to have poor mobility.
Yep.
And the other 5 years was keeping you there at maintenance.
Yes.
So then it only takes 5 years to, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. So yeah, we might think it's 10 years, but actually it didn't take long at all. And then it was just maintenance.
It was just keeping it. It was
maintenance.
maintaining.
Yeah.
So same with like a mental health issue. Maybe it was like there were certain things that were happening that made somebody feel. I'm thinking from my own personal point of view, stuff that I've struggled with. Certain things were happening over a period of time, got me to where I was, and then everything else was just keeping me there.
Yeah, precisely.
It wasn't getting
yeah.
worse, but it wasn't getting better. It was just
Absolutely.
keeping me there. But I don't know. God, this is the thing, like overused expression that I use so many times with my students, with my clients, is horses for courses. As in science, as much as we love to lump people together in categories and have specific sets of guidelines that apply to that group and that group and that group, because it makes our job easier, basically. It makes data analysis easier, but actually we can't get away from the fact that we're all different.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's like, what is there, 8 billion people on the
So
planet?
different.
We're all different.
No one's
And you
fingerprint
can't
is
find
the same.
No, you can't find a blanket one-size-fits-all approach for everybody.
No.
You always have to tailor it. But
Yeah, certainly.
but yeah, mate, this is really interesting. So yeah, keep going. So
Well, I think from essentially all that happened after that, mate, honestly, my anxiety cleared up. I might be wrong, but I would say within a week. And this is daily panic attacks lasting up to 14 hours a day, every single day, without fail. Every day for years, even on Christmas Day, my birthday, like happy days, holiday, it would always happen. To suddenly standing up against the bully of anxiety, realizing I'm more powerful now because I've got the upper hand. Close my airway. It can't. I've got my power back. Within a week, it was just like, oh, well, what's the point then? Because every time, and I felt it come on, and I feel it come on, but it was almost like, what's the point of going through it? Because I know it can't do what I'm ultimately terrified of it doing. Therefore, there's no point it really being there in the first place. I do have to give a shout out to one of my old teachers, Mrs. Allen. She wasn't actually one of my teachers. She was like a supply teacher or support worker or something. I can't remember. She was the only teacher I actually opened up to about this. And she did do one thing with my fingers. She told me to try and play with your fingers when you're doing it. And I came up with this, which will mean nothing to people watching, but to me it was a slight distraction, and that it didn't help, but it was, it gave me a bit of comfort. I don't know, it did something to me. So that was really nice.
that's interesting. I wonder where she got that from.
Yeah, I think her daughter suffered with anxiety,
Okay.
so she that was just something that she learnt. But yeah, mate, and then it just went, and then I did the same thing with the OCD, and I haven't had a panic attack since back in high school, just before my GCSEs, and I went all the way through college, and multiple different jobs in the fitness industry and everything, and being in so many places that would have absolutely triggered my, I've spoken in front of hundreds of people at events, and and I feel the anxiety coming on, but it never takes over. So
yeah, there's numerous examples, isn't there? Of I mean, films are good. I'm a movie fan anyway, so whenever someone's talking, I often think, oh, that reminds me of a film.
Yeah.
But there's so many examples, isn't there, in films where they overcome the fear, or they take it on, they hit it head on, and they overcome it. But there's a book I read years ago when I was going through a tough time. I read a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Love that.
Susan, you've read it?
No, but what a good title.
Oh yeah.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, it was really good, and there was an expression in there that ships are safest in the harbour, but that's not what they were built for.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's littered with things like that. I really liked it. I mean, one thing you'll notice, you probably notice this with certain books, they resonate with you at certain times in your life.
Yeah.
Like someone will go, you've got to read this book, and you read it, and you go, okay, I mean, yeah, it's all right, but not as good as what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's because you didn't need it then.
It's not your time.
It's not your time. Yeah, there's definitely some of that going on. I had it with. Have you ever read Eckhart Tolle? I know actually you've read The Power of Now, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Have you read A New Earth?
New Earth, yep, love that one.
Yeah. So when I first read that, I was like, oh my god, it actually blew my mind. I've tried to read it since, and it doesn't resonate with me. But I think it's because I'm not in the place I was. I needed that book back then.
Yeah. Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah. But essentially, what everything comes around to is talking about challenging fear, isn't it? Or channeling fear might be better.
Channeling fear, and what there's a breakdown of fear. Each letter stands for something, and I like to see it as false evidence appearing real. So my false evidence was the anxiety. It appeared real, but actually, it wasn't really there. It's hard to get your head around, especially as someone who's dealt with it, because it is very real. You physically can't breathe. If you said breathe in loudly, it would sound like that, and you can't get enough in, and you're holding your chest, and your hands are like this, and you can't open them, and you feel paralyzed, and it's a horrific feeling, but it's not actually real, quotation marks. Like, it's not a disease. It's not like you've actually got something wrong with your body. It's happening inside of your own head, which is equally as terrifying, but it's still false evidence appearing real in that moment.
Yeah, it's a tough balance to get though, because you have to have some fear. Like if you're in the Canadian mountains and a bear steps out in front of you,
yeah, well, of
and
course,
you don't fear it, like I don't know, like you have to.
Some fear is obviously real,
and even
like,
exactly, and even like the fear of what happens if I don't pay my bills. You kind of need that, because
certainly.
You wouldn't pay your bills otherwise.
You wouldn't get up in the morning.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. So fear is there.
Yeah.
Like, it's not all bad. It's there to motivate you to take action.
But it can be your best friend. Yeah.
Exact. I think, isn't that you saying that reminds me another book.
Yeah.
Called, I think it's called Fear, Friend of Exceptional People, and I read that, and in there it talks about Mike Tyson, how like a lot of people don't know that he used to cry before fights because he'd be so nervous.
Yeah.
And his trainer, I'm not sure how you pronounce his surname, but Customata, I think his name was. He taught him to channel that fear and said, "Look, fear's your friend. It's elevating your heart rate. It's dilating your blood vessels. It's energizing you. Channel that in the ring, and you're going to be stronger. You're going to be faster. You're going to be more powerful.
Yeah.
So when you feel that fear come up, don't think about it as the enemy. Think about it as your friend.
Precisely.
Although that kind of contradicts what you did, because you saw it as the enemy and you tackled it. Although not the fear. The fear.
Well, it was my friend, certainly when I was being chased as a kid, when I jumped over the fence. And if I didn't jump over that fence, I don't know what would have happened. But that was my friend.
You're right, because it's not. I was about to say that contradicts what you were saying, but it doesn't, does it? Because the fear, you feared what was going on and what was happening.
Yeah.
So the fear wasn't the enemy; it was what you were.
It was the end result that I was scared of, dying.
Yeah. Death was the enemy.
Yeah.
Fear. What was your
And do you know what the saddest part about it is? When you look into like why do the hands go like this? Why is there tingling everywhere? The body's trying to support itself. The body's on your side. It's trying to help you. You know, and you feel knackered as well. You want to just go to bed because the brain wants to shut off and be like, right, let's sort this out. So the body is always on your side. You know, if you cut yourself, the second you cut yourself, you start healing. The body is constantly on your side. It wants you. It wants what's best for you all the time. So even if you are going through an anxiety attack, it's like your body's not trying to attack itself. The body doesn't hate you. It's on your side. It's just the brain is so complicated.
Yeah.
And a lot of our childhood emotions are not treated, caused, or identified at all. And so we might have some silly little mantra or some silly little thing that we just can't get out of our head, and we're like, why is that there? And it probably stems from our childhood. Hence why I like doing a lot of trauma releasing exercises, because it doesn't deal with the emotions, but luckily you don't have to go back to that emotional place. You just release it from your muscles. I haven't actually taken you through a TRE
No,
session
you haven't.
yet.
No, we've done ice baths.
Yep.
We've done meditation. We've done obviously training, hiking.
Yep.
But no, you haven't done any of that. Mate.
We should do that at the end of a podcast one day, and I think you'd love it, mate. It's so good.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. So one of the good aspects of this actually is for me, because of the age gap between you and I, and we've talked about again this off camera, off podcast. But you're growing up in an era or a generation, or like you when you were younger, you grew up in an era or generation. I think you agreed was where it was maybe easier or more acceptable to talk about your feelings and to be a bit open about stuff.
Yeah, to a degree, definitely. It was sort of just starting to change in like my early years. So sort of between when I was born and 10 years old, it was still pretty, like, some teachers said and did some really bad shit that you wouldn't be able to do now.
Okay.
But certainly high school, there was a lot of that, like mental health, talking about your feelings. I was at an all boys school, and there was a lot of, boys feel things too, boys cry too, open up to your teachers. There was a lot of that, lots of counselling and support, and yes, certainly there was a lot more than that. And I mean, I listened to even my parents, and I'm sure your parents have some stories when they went to school, getting the cane and just doing all sorts of mad things, like abusing kids, literally, and crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 45 this year, and at my primary school, we did get whacked.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It was only when I became an adult, just yesterday. No, but when I got older and I reflected back, I only found out in recent years that wasn't okay. I know that sounds crazy, but like, they were doing something wrong. Like, they shouldn't have been doing that. By the way, this isn't me suddenly going, everyone, poor me. But I'm just reflecting back on what happened. But it was only recent years that I was like, oh, right, so they weren't allowed to do that then.
Yeah. But it was normalised.
But it was normalised, and I think it was just one of those things that it was a Catholic school, and no, I don't know. I don't think anyone cared. I think it was
well, not if it was normalised, no.
I just don't think it. Yeah. So whatever. But anyway, so talking about stuff. I mean, this is great that now, it's so nice for me knowing that my children, like Jade and Betsy, Lara, they can talk about stuff now, and it's all fine. And I'm probably more so, rightly or wrongly, I'm more for Jaden, because he, like, those old connotations of men don't talk about their feelings. I think that's largely been ironed out now, isn't it? I don't think Jaden's going to grow up with that.
Well, no, and even like I think about how much it's changed now. Like when I was at school, something that would have really helped me is what a lot of kids have now, which is a timeout card. Which is like, if something's happening to you, if you're having an anxiety attack, timeout card, just go away for a bit. That would have helped me a lot, because I was always scared that people would find out and I had to pretend to go to the toilet and pretend that I felt sick all the time just to get out the lesson, Whereas if, the teachers were a little bit more lenient to be like, okay, the kid who's obviously struggling with this should be allowed to just even go home if he wants to.
Yeah.
But there was none of that. It was more like, you've got to stay in the lesson, you've got to just deal with it. If you are going through something, go to the back of the class or whatever. So now you're right. It is definitely easier for them. And we've had conversations about like, how far do you go with it to the point where kids who are growing up without problems or issues or mental health issues, do they feel almost left out? Are they like, oh, should I be going through something? And it's like, well, there's a lot of people don't. But for those who are, certainly we need systems in place to support them.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a shame. This sounds like a cop out, but sometimes I feel like, it's too late for me now. I'm 44, I'm 45. Like I can't get rid of these connotations or this idea that real men don't speak, or because this is the messed up part of the brain, isn't it? Like I know there's absolutely nothing wrong with a man, for a start, like crying, for example, because they're scared or they're upset or whatever. I know my brain, the intelligent part of my brain, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with a man saying, I'm scared, I'm fearful of this, I'm feeling anxious, asking for help. I know that. But this weird little default unconscious thing kind of, I don't know how to describe it. So like, I wouldn't want to, so my wife, Samantha, I wouldn't want her to know or feel that how do I describe this?
No, just literally say it as black and white as you need to, because I believe what you're experiencing is the primal male brain. That's what I think.
Yeah, so I want, yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, good. So I want to, good, thank you.
It's okay, John.
You understand me. You understand me. Cheers.
I got you.
Just turning to therapist. You're not going to send an invoice for this, are you, at the end of the...
Yeah, conclusion. Primal male brain.
Look, and also, look what I'm doing now. I'm turning it into a joke.
Yeah.
Isn't that classic?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I should be the provider, the protector.
Yep.
There isn't room for me to
you don't want to
have issues, or
you don't want to display weakness because you think she will worry.
Yeah, and worry, and also like that's not his job.
Yeah.
Like I don't think she's going to think that. Mm-hmm. I don't think,
yeah.
But there's a possibility.
Yeah,
like I don't know. Like what if she thinks?
No, I get you, mate.
Well, hold on. He's supposed to be the guy that's
No,
and if anyone asks her if we got her on and someone interviewed her, she's not going to go. She's not going to say, "Yeah, I do think that, honey. You need to stay strong for the family. There isn't time to talk about your mental health issues." I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm in a really good place. Mm-hmm. I'm fine now, but I had stuff before, like prior to meeting Samantha, and you'll understand this. It scares you so much that you don't want to go back to it, that you put everything in place, don't you, as like precautionary, like preventative measures to stop it from happening, which I think that would be really good to talk about, actually.
Just to expand on that, what I think personally, or what I think your experience is completely normal, and we've had conversations about this off camera as well, and we're very much in the same belief as this. But I hope I don't lose people when I say this, but I do believe that men and women are obviously very different, and there's a reason why when we walk past a pet shop, the woman's going to be, look at the little guinea pig, and the man's just like, yeah, whatever, it's just a bunch of pets. Some are more like, oh yeah, it's cute than whatever. But women are a lot more emotional and in touch with their emotions than men are. Men are very much like, right, let's get this done. Doesn't matter how I feel, doesn't matter what my day's been like, let's get this done. Then we feel really good. Women stop and think a lot more, and they'll be a lot more in tune with their emotions, right? And that's why I think they're obviously most of the time a lot better with children than men are. Okay, they can be around children for longer. They know how to deal with children more. But as I say, men are a little bit more doers. And I think what you're saying, the reason why you're worried about being too overly emotional or too overly trapped within your emotions is because then Samantha might, in her primal brain, start thinking that the gender roles are crossing a little bit too much. And again, I don't want to lose people when I say gender roles. Don't get lost in that thought. What I'm saying is, if it's almost like you're stepping into her territory a little bit too much, and then she's like, well, where's my provider? Where's my rock? Where's my that kind of thing.
Yeah, and also actually, what I should point out, by the way, is Samantha's a hard-working nurse. Hard-working nurse, works full-time for the NHS. Does very, very well. And so I don't want people to think I'm this provider. Do you know what I mean?
But we've certainly had conversations about this before, and without a shadow of a doubt, everyone, people can make their own money, and it's all fair and whatever, and a woman can be the head of the house if she wants to, or a man can. It really doesn't matter, or both of them. It really doesn't matter. But we have spoken about this before, and we've asked a lot of men about this. Men like to feel like they can provide for their family.
Yeah, they do. But this is weird because I'm the old fart here, and I'm about to challenge you on some of this, which I kind of feel like it should be the other way around. You should be the
I feel like I'm a little bit more of the old-fashioned sort of John. Go to work even if you don't feel like it.
That's it. Yeah. And when you met Grace, did you just bash her over there with a club and drag her home? I mean, this is 2024, George. What? What I was going to say was, what about if, like that example you gave, where you're walking down the? I can't believe I'm. Yeah, this really should be the other way around.
No.
You're walking down the street and you see the pet shop, and you're saying that it's more likely to be the woman that's going to go, oh, look at the guinea pigs, and the man's like, can we go over there and look at the gun shop?
Yeah.
Look, there's a shop over there that sells catapults and BB guns. Let's go look at that.
Yeah. It's funny because that is what.
that is what. Although I would definitely look at the pets.
So I wasn't saying men won't look at the pets.
No, I know.
I know. And I'm not saying that if a man walks past and he's like, oh, guinea pigs, and the woman's like, what are you doing? Like, let's go to the whatever shop. I'm not saying that can't happen.
No, I know you're not.
Okay.
I know you're not saying that.
Okay.
What I was going to challenge was, I was going to say, you bigot. No, I'm joking. I was going to say, you old-fashioned Philistine.
Get out.
George. Was, what if you think that, and we are that way because we've been conditioned to think that is talk about unconscious stuff earlier.
Yeah.
What if we've been brought up a whole life watching movies where the man's the hero, and even the Disney films are like the prince, whisking off the princess, and all that stuff has been conditioned us from such a young age. And you think about brain plasticity, neuroplasticity, where it's forming and changing our whole life. That is what's been fed to us. Mm-hmm. So in our heads, we think that there's these gender roles, and this has taken a turn, hasn't it? We were talking about mental health earlier, and we're into gender roles.
Yeah.
But anyway, so much so that, what if we're turning our nose up at certain things because we think we don't like them, but actually we've been conditioned to not like them. I know a lot of people will go, oh no, it's primal, that's what our DNA is and that's what it says. We don't actually know that, do we?
Well, to a degree, I think what you're saying is correct, to a degree, definitely. Where we have been conditioned to be like, oh, we should be like this. I think when you strip away a lot of those things, and like we've said before, when you throw the man and the woman on the desert island, naturally we resort back to those old-fashioned gender roles as such, where it's like, there's so many different examples that you can give, but you see it a lot in nature as well, how the male mammal acts versus the female mammal. But certainly you are right in potentially boys should like this, girls should like that. There's definitely a lot of that that's been conditioned. So
definitely. But what I mean is, rather than the expectation of others and going, you should like this, you should like that. What about if you've been conditioned so much that you don't like something, but you actually would have if you'd grown up in a different era, you would have liked that.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. I wouldn't be as emotional as I am if I was born in the 20s or whatever.
That's a really good example. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mate, this is juicy. This is
what I think it is. No, it is.
People listening are like, what are these guys going on?
And you've even said it before, where it's like, you the reason why we like having these conversations so much is because I talk almost, or I do a lot of the stuff that you would have liked at my age, but you almost felt a bit embarrassed to do it around your friends. Yeah. Because if you meditated, if you're into yoga, if you're into playing instruments like I'd been really over emotional and whatever, I wouldn't say I'm over emotional, but you know what I mean. I talk about things that some guys might not feel comfortable talking about. But you relate to that. You're like, oh, I want to do more of that, but I always felt like I couldn't.
Yeah, because like what example when I've been vegan now 18 months.
Well done, mate.
A
That's
lot
great.
of plant based. I like to say plant based because the trouble with being vegan. Oh god, that's another tangent, isn't it? But the trouble with being vegan is there's some shitty vegan food out there, isn't there?
Well,
and so
before we say this, I think we should just quickly explain what vegan versus plant-based is. So plant-based is a diet when you eat plant-based foods, no animal products, no eggs, no dairy, etc. For health reasons, whatever it might be, that's your diet. But being a vegan it's an ethical standpoint against the needless torture, rape, and murder of innocent animals. Right? Being vegan is like it goes out of diet.
yeah, it's more like a belief, a philosophy of a community,
an ethical blueprint on how to
a
live
moral
your life.
compass.
Yeah, yeah, certainly.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
But you're right, some vegan food is shit.
Yeah, no, I mean because you can be vegan, can't you, and eat such bad, like have a terrible diet.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so yeah, we'll do that. That can be another episode, but we'll park that for a bit. But what I was going to say was, when I was telling everybody I was going to do it, the people that I was most embarrassed to tell were what I would argue, and definitely in inverted commas, argue are my most masculine mates.
Yeah.
Masculine by the old use of the word masculinity.
Yeah.
And my dad, my dad was a butcher, so
Yeah.
you know, and I believe he worked in a slaughterhouse as well. I'm pretty sure he did. I don't know if it was very long, but I'm sure there was a story where he did work there for a bit. So anyway, big in the meat inspector, big in that industry, and don't knock him for that because again, he grew up in a different time to me, in a community, in an era. I only changed 18 months ago, but But yeah, so I was most concerned about telling him and, I won't say their names on here, but some other, a couple of other mates who would consider themselves to be, proper men, masculine men, old school, but I did because as much as I do want to be accepted by my community and I don't want to be ostracised or whatever, I believed in that more than my fear of that, I suppose.
And just to say, I remember John watching a documentary called Dominion, which everyone can watch on YouTube for free. Very enlightening documentary that I would recommend everybody listening to certainly view if you are ever thinking about being vegan or plant-based. It's a great way to start. I would suggest. But sorry, carry on. So you talk about your macho mates.
My macho mates, yeah, and I think I'll go and right back. I was saying that what the intelligent part of my brain says that all that is bollocks. Do you know what? I always thought I wouldn't swear on podcasts. I shouldn't swear. It's not big. It's not clever. But but sometimes it emphasises how you really think about something.
Authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity. I know it's nonsense, but my default is to, I probably shouldn't open up about stuff. Probably shouldn't talk about stuff. Like I love chatting, as you can probably tell.
Yeah.
Anyone that's met me. But opening up about feelings and I've always I find that a bit difficult if it threatens the old bullshit stereotype of what a real man's supposed to be like.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And it's funny because we do see men as the people who you were talking about there. I'm sure that they would want to be strong, stoic, reliable. People who could help if there was a bad situation, and that's to me what veganism is all about. Being able to stand up for something that you believe is wrong, try to be a kinder person, trying to be more ethical, realizing when you see something wrong and actually being, quote, man enough to stand up, have a backbone and be strong in your beliefs and say, I'm not going to support that for this reason, and nothing you guys say is going to turn me off that. That's very masculine in my opinion. But a lot of men do the opposite of that. They kind of run. They almost resort back to like their childhood emotions of like, no, that scares me. No, that's bursting my bubble. So I'm going to stay inside my bubble. And that's I'm not having a go at anyone who does watch things and then they're like, oh, actually I want to carry on doing it this way.
I'm worried I'm going to forget. That's why I kind of want to interrupt. You said that's very masculine. Again, my default is to go, yeah, I think that's very masculine too.
Yeah.
But is that not feminine also?
What? Being...
Well, just what you just said, like standing up for what you believe in, challenging,
yeah.
So do you know what I mean? But
well.
do you think?
Yeah.
See, I've got this theory. I want to sound out of you, George.
Yeah.
You know when we say, "Oh, that's really masculine," or someone goes, "Oh, that's really feminine." What about if those words are a way of complementing the better characteristics of a gender? So, like, if you because you identify as a man,
yeah,
if you do something really cool, then you do stand up for what you believe in. You're courageous. You're authentic.
Yeah.
You're a good role model. I could say, yeah, that's really masculine, George.
Right. And if a woman did the same thing, that's really feminine.
Yeah. What about that? What about is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that?
Yeah, well, it's.
Do you like that?
Yeah, I do like it. It's staying true.
You can disagree.
No, I like it because it's staying.
It's my life's work, but you can disagree.
Anything that allows you to stay true to your character and live in your true, authentic self, I think that is a compliment to the person that you are. So if I'm doing something a certain way, or something that is a stereotypical masculine trait, stoicism, standing up for what you believe in, fighting against, for lack of better words, evil or badness in the world, I think that's like that warrior spirit, that men have always had. But you could say, it's tapping more into your feminine side and looking at your emotions and getting into all that. I'm sure it is. I personally think men have feminine traits and masculine traits, but we're more masculine than we are feminine. And then females, same thing. So females obviously have that warrior spirit when it comes to their children. If their children, like, if someone ever does something to, like, imagine with Betsy, I feel like people should be more scared of Samantha than you if anyone tries to harm little Betsy, because the motherly traits and the motherly response is to pick that car off their car. A lot of women have that.
I wonder if that's, because I agree, but I wonder if that's not feminine. That's not, what's the word?
Femininity.
Femininity. That's a tricky one, isn't it? That's being maternal.
Yeah.
Like Betsy grew inside her tummy. I mean, God, like.
But that's feminine, because that's females do that.
Okay, fine, yeah.
I appreciate it's a weird sort of.
Yeah.
It's hard to get your head around.
It is actually, and I don't think.
I think you can dissect this forever.
You could. You don't.
Sometimes
you totally could.
Things are a bit more black and white, and it's hard to.
And this one isn't, is it? Yeah, this one isn't.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, I could talk about this for ages actually, because I'm quite enjoying it. It's an interesting conversation, and there's things I kind of. Anyway, but I feel like we should get back to what, with your experience of your managing your own mental health.
Yeah.
What precautions do you put in place on a day-to-day basis that you could offer to your clients, and maybe that might be helpful for anyone listening for managing their own mental health or the mental health of their clients? What would those things potentially be?
I always say to people, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10, because I think comparison is the thief of joy. Great quote. And I always start that off when I get a new client. I say, look, you're here now, and it's probably the most unfit and etc. that you're going to be. But each day that goes past, each week that goes past, each month, you're going to continually get stronger and fitter, and it's never going to be a straight line. Got to remember that it's going to be up and down. But I drew this out in a video once, and for anyone watching, you'll be able to see. If not, you might just have to picture this. But success is never in a straight line that goes up like this. You go up, and then you go down a little bit, and then you go up, and then you might go down a lot. But as long as like you're not.
It's
you're
not
here.
linear, basically.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. So even when you have a big down, you're still not here where you started.
yeah.
You know,
You
you're
never go
still
back to
big.
zero. do
Yeah,
you?
you'll never go back ever. Because even if you worked out for a year and then didn't work out for the next 20 years, you'd still have that muscle memory in you of when you trained for that first year.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had one of my clients said to me once, what should I be doing a 10K in? Very typical, very normal question to ask your trainer.
Yeah.
But there's the science John and there's the spiritual John. And
That's good. That's good. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I just want to give this guy a straight answer without going into one. But I couldn't help but be like, for what? For a man of your age, for a man that's started where you are, for a man that's got this amount of time to train, for a man that's got children, for a man that has as many commitments as you have,
Yep.
for a man that's on the diet that you're on,
Yep.
for a man that gets the amount of sleep that you get, there's so many metrics and variables that will influence that number. And even then, if you could get all that data and you compare it to other people that share all those same characteristics and variables, you're still different people.
Yep.
So I'm like,
Yep.
that's where I'm at. However, I was like, but if you can do it under an hour, that'd be great.
Yeah,
No.
by this time he's just like, wow, who is this trainer?
Yeah, what sort of a guy have I chosen to train me? But look, there is normative data for everything, and normative data, if you're quite fit, can be quite motivating, can't it? Because you kind of think, right, I'm pretty confident in my own fitness, so let's see what other people are doing, and that normally motivates you. But when you're first starting out, just
Yeah.
worry about yourself.
Yeah,
Are you
completely.
better than the person you were last year, the year before? So absolutely bang on, love that one.
Yeah.
Next.
Great. Next one.
I don't know if it's obvious, but I need a wee.
Do you?
That's why.
Oh.
That's why I'm sort of moving about a bit, and I'm asking these questions a bit quickly.
Do you want to pause it or should we finish it?
Nah, keep going.
Okay.
Where we gone? An hour. We're an hour in.
We're an hour in, that's great. So, what did I say there? Oh, the chart thing. I always remind people that what you need to understand why you're doing this. Are you doing it to feel better? Are you doing it to look better, or both? Because I worry, because of the world we live in, I worry that a lot of people do it mostly for how they look, which is certainly great and makes you feel better. Definitely improves your mental. If you look better, you feel more sexy, you feel more attractive, you feel like you can conquer the world. It visually looks pleasing, less scared to take your top off when you're on holiday, etc. All that stuff is great, but there's a lot of people coming out now in the fitness world who admit that they only did it for how they looked and they never did anything to work on how they actually felt inside. For example, stretching after a workout, that can be something that you can do to make you actually feel better on the inside as well, or doing a little meditation practice or a gratitude practice, you with your journal and stuff. And so I always sit down with people and have quite a lengthy conversation about that, because a lot of people eventually do say, no, do you know what? I really do want to feel better. I really want to feel better, and I'm not too worried. Like I'd rather feel better. I'd rather feel better than look better, but I still want to look better as well. And it's like perfect. Now I know how to train you, because we will do hypertrophy stuff if you're trying to build your muscle. We will do some fat burning exercises as well, but we're always going to finish with a meditation. We're always going to finish with some flow movements or some body massages that you can do, some tapping practices, some blood flow practices, some Wim Hof breathing, etc. that will improve your mental health as well. But if someone's like, no, I literally just want to look good, and in turn that will make me feel better, it's like, great, 4 times a week we're doing hypertrophy and that's it. Scrap the meditation and stuff, we'll just focus on that. So I think people need to have a deeper conversation with themselves first before they dive in. Because how many people do you see going to these exercise classes all the time and they hate it, and they come out and they say, I hate this. It's like, well, why are you doing it? And they're like, well, because I want to feel better. And it's like, okay, well, have you ever thought about, going for a walk in the woods instead, being out in nature more? Or like I say, doing more flow practices, or you don't even need to be in a class. You can do something for free at home that I can teach you right now. Do that every day and you'll start feeling better, So I just think that before people dive into something, have an open and honest conversation with yourself and think about what is it you really want to achieve. I know that's a little bit deep, but what are your thoughts on that?
No, I hear you. Well, one of the things I've picked up from you, from knowing you over the years, is you're not overly attached to an outcome, are you?
No.
I would say even with training, with your personal life, with your work, like you might have a goal in mind, but you've never, from what I can tell, you've never been a massively goal oriented person. You've been more about the journey,
Yeah.
and the experience and the process. So you would, if someone said to you, oh, walking's not going to get your VO2 max up to, an elite athlete level, you'd be like, well, I don't care.
Yeah.
I like walking, so
Yeah.
I'm going to go walking.
Yeah.
And I am somewhat like that, but I would say you're even more so. So I would be more inclined to endure something because I want an outcome.
Yeah.
Less likely these days, maybe since meeting you, I don't know. Whereas you're more like to go, well, forget it. I forget about the outcome. What life do I want to live?
Yeah.
I want to walk in nature. I want to go down to the calisthenics park. I want to, and I do like it. I think it's a nice approach that when you're teaching people to exercise regularly, adhere to that, but then also adhere to a healthy lifestyle that's good for their mental health, is actually choose a life that you want to live, that's good for you, good for those around you, good for the planet, good for animals, etc.
It's because often goals and targets, which I think are fantastic and everyone should have a go at it, but I've realised two things. One, it's short-lived, and two, it does take you out of the moment, because if you're doing pull-ups every day and you say, I'm only going to be happy when I get 20, that's my goal, I need to get goal. Every time you get 10, 15, 19 pull-ups, it's never good enough, and you'll constantly tell yourself you're not good enough. That will then become your identity, and people will give you compliments. Your biceps are looking big, you're still doing your pull-ups. Yeah, I can't get 20 though. That will be your identity. Even if you don't want to admit it, Will, in the back of your mind, no, because I can't do 20 pull-ups because that's my goal. Then you'll hit your goal and be like, yes, I got 20 pull-ups. But there'll always be someone else on social media or your friend doing 25, 30 pull-ups. And it never ends. And then you live the life of a failure. And when you live the life of a failure, you don't like yourself. When you don't like yourself, you want to be like someone else. So I'm all for accepting the character or accepting the person that you are today, and not beating that person up for not being able to do 20 pull-ups. And more so, if you got 5 pull-ups today, you're a champion. That's amazing. Well done. You should be proud of yourself, and you should think about that before you go to bed. How blessed I am to be able to do pull-ups in the first way. Still have a goal. Like I have goals. Like the other day I was doing pull-ups. I was like, blimey, I need to get back to being able to do X amount or whatever. But if I can't get X amount, I don't beat myself up for it, if that makes sense.
I think, it does. It makes massive sense. So I've always been motivated in the past by actually being competitive with other people and seeing what other people can do. It's always been kind of an inspiration to me to try and do as well, beat them, etc. And it's worked for me from the point of view that at times it's got me to a fitness level where I've been quite proud of.
Nice.
However, there's a dark side to this. No, there's another side to it. Which I don't like, is if I'm trying to be the best at something, whether it's in a small community, in a competition, my local gym, whatever it may be, in order for me to feel great, so like say I want to come first in something, in order for me to feel great, it's kind of at the detriment of everyone else, because the only way I can feel my best is if everybody else is beneath me,
below you.
And that's kind of, and I don't know if this is just because I'm getting older, a bit more sentimental or moving with the times perhaps.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite ready to say, they should ban sports day and they should not place people and everything. Maybe I will one day, who knows? But because that's been a big part of my life, and actually that's served me quite well. But I'm very aware that doesn't serve everyone that well. So just because it's been quite good for me, maybe that's been at the detriment of others. Anyway, so the reason I'm saying that is because I think it links to what you're saying quite nicely, is instead of getting your clients to compete with others and hit an elite level 5K for their age group, for their gender, whatever the hell you want to call it, is actually just celebrate any progress within yourself. So if you get one more rep, great, celebrate. Not for cream cake, but
no.
But just give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah.
If your technique improves, give yourself a pat on the back. If your mobility gets better, give yourself, and forget what everyone else is doing. Yeah,
just chill. Like even in sports day, like I absolutely believe there's a first, second, and third. And I know in schools now they're doing a lot more sort of everyone gets a trophy, everyone's a winner. which is great if everyone's taking part in something, especially if they're nervous. They're absolutely a winner in my book, and hopefully in theirs. But in a class of kids, there is someone who is going to be the fastest, and absolutely they should, if they take part in a race, they should get a first place medal, and fantastic, you were the fastest, great, that's brilliant. And then they compete against all the other schools who were the fastest, and then we can watch them on TV and all this entertainment stuff. But I remember when I was doing sports day and stuff, and if I'd come 4th or 5th or whatever, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't be like, oh damn it, I didn't come first. And I know that's just difference, like everyone's different. But I would just be like, I'm glad that I took part. I'm proud of the person who was behind me. I'm proud of the person who was in front of me. And it's like, this is a big community group thing that we've all done, and we should all be really happy. So that's kind of how I see exercise, because there's just so much comparison. It's just things that I've just seen. I've just seen, you give someone a compliment, yeah, but I'm not as good as this person. Yeah, but I'm not as skinny as that person. Yeah, but I'll never look like this. But it's like, that's what's been drummed into our heads.
Yeah, you're bringing something to the table.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the same as that person there, but you're bringing something to the table. And that's why, like, if you think about, people often say, the reason humans have evolved to who we are today is because we're competitive and we drive, and we're always pushing to be better and better and better. But there's another theory that if you look at us compared to other species, we're actually physically quite pathetic.
Yeah.
We're not very fast.
No.
Very strong. You think about all the other species, how amazing they are at what they can do physically. But what we are very good at is creating communities and working one another and utilising each other for their different strengths and whatever. So that as one, we're in a mighty force and we can do fantastic things. So this idea then that we're trying to elevate one individual as being the best above everyone else is fine for a very specific thing. Give them credit where credit's due, but let's not forget that we're looking at one very specific thing.
Yeah.
This isn't the measure of them as a human being.
Exactly.
There might be a million ways to measure the success or just an individual, and at the moment we're just celebrating one.
Yeah.
Mate, this is getting deep, isn't it?
No, that's great.
Shouldn't have smoked that joint before you came on. Just kidding. Don't do drugs, kids.
Just kidding.
So let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
But I think, again, I'll get you back on if that's all right, because
Yes,
I want to
please.
talk about some things like some of the sort of self-help type stuff that you've done with clients, you've done with yourself, like the meditation, gratitude stuff, just being a nice, compassionate human being, helping others, how wonderful that is for your own mental health.
Yeah, definitely.
Would you be up for that?
Absolutely, mate.
Okay.
Yeah, I love these.
All right,
podcasts.
well, I'm glad you said. Do you know what? I knew the answer was going to be yes, so I started talking before you even finished. Yeah, I know you will. Right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Get back on. It's been an hour and 12
I'm
minutes.
like, no, John, no more, please. Stop.
I've got my own business.
Yeah.
Stop getting me involved in yours.
It's my day off, John. It's my one day off.
That you'll be single next time you're on, because you spend so much time hanging out with me that Grace will have dumped you. But anyway, you'll be fine. You've got all those methods to get over that. So
True. Yeah, I'll do my TRE and my little.
Do you want to do another shameless plug as well for Grace Moriart?
A shameless plug.
No, you did it last time you were on. You said something about Grace Moriart.
Oh, did I give her a shout out?
Yeah, do another one. Go on.
I'll do another one. My girlfriend is a very talented artist, and you can follow her on Instagram, Grace Murray Art, or you can go to gracemurrayrowley.com and look at her amazing artwork. She's like ridiculously good, and she can draw pictures for you and your family as well. Pets mostly, pet portraits, but humans as well.
There we go.
There we are.
Yeah, and they're crazy good. So I saw a painting she did recently of a friend of ours, their dog, and I was like, it looked like a photo. So clever. Anyway, right, thank you, mate, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, sir. Thanks everyone for listening.
Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, something you can do for me is subscribe to my show. And if you know anyone else that might be interested in this content, then please share it with them too. You can also head over to our socials and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. But if you're ready to take that next step, visit our website, www.stormfitnessacademy.co.uk, fill out a contact form that will come straight to me. I will contact you shortly afterwards, and I look forward to speaking to you then.